Here's your report.
Oh, thanks, Jane. I wish I could hire someone just like you.
Try LinkedIn Hiring Pro. It's more than a job board. It's like the recruiter you always wished you had. Hiring Pro uses real-time insights to match your role to LinkedIn's unique network of professionals and delivers a short list of best fit candidates. You'll spend less time sorting applicants and more time talking to the right people.
Let's do it. You're irreplaceable, Jane, but another you would be great.
Hire right the first time. Post your job for free on LinkedIn today at linkedin.com/quality.
This episode is brought to you by Accenture. When your advertising operations fall out of sync, everything else follows. Spotify and Accenture are working together to reinvent the rhythm of ad sales, using automation, analytics, and smarter workflows to simplify campaign delivery and access better data across the business. The result? Less time spent on operations, more time connecting brands with the moments and fandoms that matter most. Learn more at accenture.com/Spotify.
And action! Hello and welcome to this week's exciting episode of the Filmmakers Podcast. This is a podcast where we talk filmmaking, from indie film to studio films to line TV and documentaries and everything in between. How to get them made, how to make them, and how to try not to royally F it up, in our very, very humble opinion. I am Giles Alderson. I'm a writer, director, and a producer. And today, I am absolutely delighted to welcome back, the second time on the show, the brilliant writer, brilliant director and producer, George Jaques. You might remember George when he came on the show about a year and a half ago with his producer, Ken Petrie, to talk about his phenomenal debut feature film, Black Dog. Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and germs, George is back. And he has leveled up in a massive way with his second feature, the hugely acclaimed coming-of-age comedy drama, Sunny Dancer. Fresh off its premiere at Berlin Film Festival and hitting cinemas across the UK and US, Sunny Dancer, it boasts a phenomenal cast. It stars Bella Ramsey, who's in The Last of Us, Ruby Stokes, Conrad Khan, Earl Cave, Jasmine Elcock, alongside BAFTA winner Jessica Gunning for Baby Reindeer, James Norton, Happy Valley, and the legendary Neil Patrick Harris from How I Met Your Mother. Not to mention a hilarious cameo from James Blunt. Yes, the James Blunt sat on the tube singing songs. But in this episode, George and I dive deep into the reality of making that leap from micro-budget debut to large-scale ensemble feature. We also talk about how he subverts the classic sick teen tropes by making a cancer camp movie where cancer is the least interesting thing about his characters, and his genius approach to building cast rapport through feral takes. Yeah, feral takes. Look forward to that. And summer camp bonding. And what it's also like directing heavyweights like Neil Patrick Harris and Jessica Gunning. We also get the brutally honest discussion about the mental toll of closing indie film financing, navigating press tours, and why creating a supportive family environment on set is the secret to getting world-class performances. I love George. He's a very talented guy, and this is a fabulous chat. We just shot the breeze. It's really funny. In fact, we shot the breeze so much I forgot to press record at the beginning, and it just starts. Just me and him chatting. So I hope you enjoy that. This is a warm, insightful, deeply honest masterclass in directing actors and steering a second feature to a massive release. So grab a brew, get your notepads out, and please welcome the brilliant George Jaques. Off today? Yeah, it's not a day off. No, we're in prep. So we're shooting in a couple of weeks. Yeah, nice. Couple of weeks, but it's relentless and non-stop, and yeah, I'm bummed. But you, how about you? You're impressed. It's coming out. It's exciting.
Yeah, it was wicked. We had the premiere last night, so it was like it was just mad. So we did this like immersive version of CRF camp, the film set in, and it was like you came in, there was like James Blunt karaoke, there was drag queens everywhere, there was like camp check-in desks, like tattoo stations, and you watched the film, and then afterwards you went through a secret door I was like, yard sale peaches bucking bronco with like James Norton on a bucking bronco has gone viral this morning. Everything.
Love it.
So
Oh
it's
my
been good.
gosh. Wow, what a premiere. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, I like it when we do like themes or, there's better for when people are there. They've got more to take photos of, more to do videos of and socialize the shit out of it,
I think it was also like, I wanted it to feel, when you're, have we started by the way? Because
Yeah.
we can save it otherwise. I think I wanted to sort of make it like, when you're doing an indie film like Sunny or whatever, like, we can't afford like certain things. So then you don't want to just feel like a budget big premiere, so you're trying to work out how you make it feel alive and full of life and all those different things. And I think that's what we were trying to push yesterday was like, okay, if our budget's not there, how can we do it differently? And sort of lean on that and actually, be cheeky and have like, Yard Sale just did like loads of big pizzas for us and Moth sponsored all the booze. We had all like Moth cocktails instead of like, buying in loads of vodka. And it was a really fun night. And then someone got me this, which is a James Blunt t-shirt from back in the day, which makes my life utterly complete.
Oh, I totally agree. James Blunt's an actual legend. He's such, I love like his documentary. I saw his documentary and I thought it was fantastic. And
He's so good. And when he jumped in on Sunny, I was just like, I cannot believe that you're in this.
I know. Did you actually just reach out? Did you just sort of go, hey, James, I kind of fancy that? How did that happen with James Blunt getting him involved?
Yeah, I mean, it was mad. It was when I started my company when I was 16, I was like raising money in this local pub in Tooting.
Yeah.
For my first ever play. And a guy came up to me called Todd Interland who was like, hey, like one day I'm going to give you my card and one day, just call me if you ever need anything. And it was James Blunt's manager. And I was 16 at the time. And like sort of basically 10 years later, I did that call and I was like, hey, I've got this thing for James. I'd love him to sort of do this movie. And Todd was like, yeah, amazing. What's the fee? And I was like, it's an EasyJet flight. And they were like, yeah.
Oh,
great.
yeah. James
They
loves an
go.
EasyJet flight.
He loves it. He's like that. No business class flights for him.
No, absolutely. That's really cool. Did the guy remember you? Did he sort of?
Yeah, I think a bit of like putting pieces together, you know what I mean? Like it was sort of a bit of that, but he was like, yeah, and now we're friends and he like follows me on Instagram and he tracks my career and it's really cool. And, I just love James Blunt so much that I'm like, what else can I put him in?
Yeah, totally. What was really great, because obviously the documentary shows how tough it was for him and how hard and how people were just really mean to him for just writing some hit songs. And he then just started with the tweets and started going back at the people. And then everyone just went, actually, James Blunt's really cool. What a guy. I love it. And I love that he just popped up in your movie because I wasn't expecting it at all. And then he's really funny with it as well. Do you know, with asking a little bit of acting.
What's crazy is like I didn't write any of those lines.
No way.
I wrote that whole script, right? But like the James Blunt stuff when he's going like, next year the cruise ships or he's flirting with the therapist, that was all him. And I was just like, my God, this man's like a genius.
That's amazing. Isn't that great? I love it when actors take something that's there on the page and just sort of play with it. Because you're not one of those directors who's too precious right within the script.
I think, I always say like, I think it's such a like lucky thing because I wrote it as well that like then I have like the autonomy to be like, oh, I'm going to change it or whatever. But I do always say to my actors, like, before you come on my set, I want to know if there's lines you don't like. So we do a lot of work away from being on set. So we'll do character sessions and I'll jump on Zoom with them and we'll talk through like little details. Just for like Bella Ramsey, it was like, okay, where did Ivy grow up? What sports did they like doing? All those different things. And then that suddenly I make this really lame fact file sheet, which is like the real story of like the characters. And then all my HODs get that because then suddenly it starts appearing like when they're packing their bag for camp, it's a tennis racket's there or like, their favorite bar of, I don't know, snacks that they would bring and all those things. Because I think for me, when I'm working with actors, I want them to be able to like sort of feel real with the job and feel like they can live and breathe it. And in that time, I also like speak to them and I go like, is there anything that doesn't ring true for your character? Is there anything we want to really push? And then I do a week's rehearsal before every job, which is amazing. Just, I sort of use that for people to check out of the worlds they've been in. Bella came off a press tour of The Last of Us and straight to us. And so it's like, now check out of that and come be with us. And then when you're on set, it means I kind of expect the script to be done. And once we've got the script, then I'm like, right, now let's play around and see where we can get to.
I think that's so cool. I mean, getting a week's rehearsal, there'll be so many people listening now going, he's so lucky.
Yeah, I know, right? But I think I just insist on it. Like,
Yeah, I think you should.
I did all the cast deals on Sunny, and I think what was really amazing about that in some ways is like, I sort of make all my actors have the same size trailer and share a car to work and rehearse. And I think I don't do that out of like stubbornness or budget. Obviously it helped with Sunny Dancer, but it's more about like making this theatre company feeling. And I think when I'm as a director on the phone to like an agent and explaining why I want to do that, they really get it. And I think that's the same with rehearsals. It's like, it, yeah, of course there's a room fee and there's, you're booking your actors for a bit more, but like most actors on a job will at least give you an hour on a Zoom. You know what I mean? If you can't get a full room, jump in and meet them. I always say I don't want the first time any of my actors to meet me to be on set. Like I can't do that. I have to meet them on Zoom at the very least. And then when they get to their hotel, I usually, or their day one of filming in their trailers, I always write them like a handwritten note for me, just being like, welcome aboard. And like, I'm so thrilled you're here. And I think that's because someone did it for me once when I was like 21 on a job, like as an actor. And I just remember being so touched and moved and was like, I was like a day player on this film. And I was like, oh my God, like I feel really part of the family. And it was so special to me. So I did that. And then also with actors, and this is where I was so lucky I did that for so long, was like, I text my actors every night, like after a day's filming, I'm just like smashed it. And just one little like weird thing. And I think not enough directors do that, and I think you don't understand like how much an actor's probably freaking out in their hotel room about what they've done that day. And you just learn those things, right? And that's sort of like, part of the process that sort of sticks around with you.
It does, and it's so interesting you say that. And obviously, coming from the acting background, you understand what the actors go through, and a lot of directors don't. Which is why I always say, hey, if you can go do an acting class, you can go be in a film.
Yeah.
You learn so much about what an actor has to go through. It isn't just hitting your marks and saying the lines. There's so much emotional baggage and so many things. And like you say, you go back to the hotel room and you go, oh, I could have done that differently. Did I capture that bit? Hang on, was that on my close-up or was it on the reverse when I did that bit? And a little note, like you just said, a little text or whatever saying, well done today. It's really lovely. I remember there was... Oh, go on, George. Go
I
on.
was just going to say, and the trick is never like copy and paste, because all your cast do check. Like they'll be in a car going, did you get the same one? And just on your note as well, just on that, like, go learn, acting class is amazing. Like when I was 18 and I'd sort of left school, I was lucky that we had like 3 shows back to back with the theatre company. And then I was working under Sir Nicholas Heitner in theatre as his like, as a little like
legend.
Yeah, as a little like mentor, like mentee thing. Like, it was just, I wasn't being paid, but I was just in this room and it was amazing. But I think actually watching theatre and watching actors working in theatre, and like, because those rehearsal weeks can be 8 weeks or 4 weeks or 6 weeks. I always say to like directors, I'm like, just try and reach out and find, even if it's your local fringe theatre, even if it's like a West End thing, go sit in a theatre rehearsal room as well, because that's really where you see actors play. And that's where you see actors really doing what they do best, which is fixing things and like being alive. And I think more film directors should go see that process, because it is amazing. And I remember Nick saying to me when I was young, he was like, really good actors can fix things. And I've always like kept that, and watching that man, like, I didn't go to university. I sort of didn't study film. I didn't study theatre. I just sort of learned by doing it. But watching him argue with the cast over where the punctuation from Shakespeare was, I was just like, I just can't believe this. And I think, those little things you really just hold on to and pick up on.
I love going to the theatre. You're absolutely right. That's where you see actors at their most vulnerable, most tested, most and alive and best. And you can pick up so much.
And I think what's so fun about theatre, Nick said it again, just on the final note on that, he's also the kindest human ever, but like, he always says, like, when because he directed film and theatre, from History Boys, both on stage and not, but I remember him always like, the big difference is like, when you finish a day on a film set, you go home and you're like, oh, I wish I did that, or whatever it is. But he's like, with theatre, you go home and you go, I wish I did, I'll just change it tomorrow. And he's like, it's such a different energy. And like, he was the first director that I worked under that I was like, wow, I now know what being a director means. Because when I started, I was making my own plays, as you know, like in theatre arches and in like off West End venues that were doing really well. And then we had a little show at the National that I was so proud of. But I remember working on A Midsummer Night's Dream and just like him being like, I want the beds to fly. And then a whole room of people being like, yep, beds are going to fly. And I was like, oh my God, that's what directing is. Because when you're starting, you sort of only know your limitations of like, what you can pull off for $4,000, in an abandoned railway. I was like, that's all I knew. And then I was watching this huge scale and people doing it. And I was like, what a power and what a what a thing to be so careful with, because it's like people will make your vision happen and you have to really sort of like carefully do that.
And I think, and so interesting you should talk about that, and with film and how we've got to be so precise in what we want beforehand in the prep stage. Because let's say you do want moving beds. Well, in theatre, in the rehearsal, you can find it and you can sort of go, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we moved the beds? And because Heitner kind of gets that. In film, we don't. If we're in those rehearsals, we've already planned to some extent if there is going to be moving beds, because otherwise everyone's production's literally going, nah, mate.
You can't have anything but
budget spent.
And how do you do it? Like, because for me, it's like I sort of have this weird, and I don't, because it's so interesting when we get to chat on stuff like this, like with other directors. It's like I, on a job, basically always have this like unnecessarily large folder, which is like on one page is the script, like printed, and it would be like my annotations of some performance beats. Then on the second page, it's like a shot list with a load of like shot deck images that like me and my DP would have gone through for weeks before in prep, sort of like, and I call it a director's guide. Ollie, my DP on Sunny, was like, it's a birthing plan. And I was like, okay, that's definitely a director's guide.
Birthing plan.
It's great because then it's like on days where you feel, and I think we both know, like, we've been doing this, both of us, for a while, but it's like, there's days where you don't feel yourself, and like, you're in charge of that set, and like, there's days where you're tired, and that's an amazing thing, because you open it and you go, oh yeah, this is the kind of reference image, this is the shot, and some days I just sort of stick to that, and then some days I don't even open it, and I'm just like, yeah, I'm gonna go this way through the scene. How do you do it?
It was so similar, actually. The only thing I don't do is take images into my script on the day. I've done the same thing with my DP before, and we've gone through every shot deck image and every image from some painting or whatever else it is to get that feel. And weirdly, you're right. I probably should do that on set. And now you made me think, oh, I could do that. I'm like you though, is also sometimes I've got all those in my head and I know the look, but then I get influenced by what's new. And if I'm getting bogged down in an image rather than seeing it or feeling it in the moment, that can maybe bog me down. But the main thing I do is every night I sit with my DP, or day, depending on when you're shooting, and go through every shot for the next day and the plan, how we're going to cover it. Even though I've done it way before, everything changes. And then now you're in the space, or you're in the feeling, and you know the actors more, and you know what you want to get, and suddenly magic arrives from that. So that's how I like to do it. But setting a shot list and
I think that's what's so magic, is having that collaboration. I mean, even with the images I put on, there's so many of them that I'm not usually trying, but it's just like an inspiration. But I think, I always get into work like an hour before call time, because I need that time where I like, get a cup of tea and then like, change into my like directing gear almost, like, and then my first AD is always there with me. Like, we actually drove in together every day on Sunny Dancer, and then like, and we didn't have budgets for our car, so we had to just drive my car in every day, and the amount of flat tires we got was crazy. But so we would, I remember calling Ken Petrie once, like, I was like picking my mum wanted to come up, and I was like, I was picking up from Glasgow. We'd been like, it was about week 4. We had just finished like the James Blunt stuff, and James Norton had been in, Neil Patrick Harris had been in, Jessica Gunning, all the big pieces. And it was like a night, and she was on quite a late train. I was driving to Glasgow, and I just hit a pothole so hard, and my car tire just went bang. And I was like, I just don't know what to do right now. I was like, and you're just like, I am not equipped to deal with like a flat tire right now. I just feel like there's so much going on in my head with this film, and I can't. I've got the Bond there. I've got like, all these actors. I've got Bella Ramsey. I've got like everyone. And I was like, this is going to break me. And it was really cool, because the next day I drove in, and I told one of the drivers on set, the lovely team in Glasgow that sort of like drove us, called Davey. And I was like, look, this happened last night. And he was like, give me your keys. And he just took my keys and then went and just got me a new tie. He took my card and everything, but he just sorted it. And I remember just being like, wow. And he was like, I would only do that for you because you've been so good to us. I just was so grateful. I just remember being like, I want to cry. But anyway, just going back to the Ben thing, we kind of go in really early, and then I get Ollie or whoever's DPing to come in earlier. Because I think before it gets mad, I can't really, because then the grip's there, and then the gaffer's all there, then everyone's waiting, production team are sort of waiting to go, and production design team are there, and you're like, oh, I don't even know what we're doing. I need to see the space and like see it, and your actors are breathing down your neck, and so I really love that little sacred time.
It's sacred. You're so right, because there's so many questions that come, and suddenly you're bombarded with stuff, and you haven't thought about. Someone will go, "Oh, is it this red T-shirt you want, or this tree in this particular spot?" And suddenly you've got to answer these, and you have to have an answer. And what I do there most of the time is make a decision, and then I can change it later. But what I never do is say I don't know. I'll go, "Yeah, red T-shirt, tree will go there." That's fine. And then later, when I'm in that mode, I go, "Actually, sorry, I was wrong. Not the red T-shirt's yellow, and that tree needs to go over there." No one minds, but you have to make a decision, otherwise it causes problems. So you do that.
Yeah. Ken, who, as you know, like, who I've worked with since I was like 19, is on 2 films now and like short films and stuff. He always said, like, used to say to me, and he used to annoy the shit out of me when I was younger. It was like, make a decision, wrong or right. Just make a decision. I remember, and it's so true though, and I feel like actually I've learned to love it, because it is like, yeah, like you said, you can change your mind. There's nothing wrong with that. But like in the moment, people just need
an answer,
whatever you say. Like, and if it's, I don't know. But there's also, it is hard sometimes, that stuff, because you are trying to figure it out in your head too and fix it and work through it. And you're going like, and someone will bring up something really interesting, or there'll be a problem, or there'll be like, the tenting around you when you're doing Day for Night is like not quite right. And you're like, I just need a moment. Like, just give me 1 second. And I think like, you can really see people's brains just going like that, and that's why I feel so lucky that I've got to be on other people's sets and just watch other directors' brains do that and realize that when mine does that, I'm not the only one.
Yes, that's what's been lovely about being in the studio here. I have got to see other directors' work. You can go and visit the sets, and it's fascinating. And it's the same. It's exactly what you said. You see other directors' heads whirring. Yeah. And you go, "Oh, good. Okay, I'm not the only one who's this mad, whatever it is, idiot savant at the time, trying to get my vision or whatever it is across." But having that time in the morning, I totally agree. It's vital to sit in for me, the space. Because often on the recce's, you're there for a second, you've got photos or a video. But when you sit back in it in first thing in the morning and the sunlight's coming a certain way, you go, "Oh, actually, this would be nice." Or with your DP or your first, and just actually go, "Could I try this?" But for me, I do it the night before. If I've been in the location, I like to sleep on it and then know what I'm doing coming in, because it can be frightening, like you say, how it could change. And there's nothing worse than not knowing as a director. You go, "Oh, what is the shot? Oh, that's frightening."
Yeah, and I think that is the thing, and you sort of you feel so like, when you're sort of directing those moments and sort of trying to make it and trying to keep it alive, I think that's so important. And I think one thing I felt lucky about with Sunny Dance and Black Dog actually is like, I had a whole team of people that were pointing in the same direction, and I try and like create a team around me of people that like, and this is why we like often, like, I think we had so many like we had a massive trainee program on this. We had people who had never been on a film set. We had a massive stepping up thing. We had like, obviously we had really established people as well, but there was also a huge amount. And because I love that feeling of like, everyone sort of wants to go a little bit above and beyond. And I think that's a really lucky thing, and something I really want to keep trying to create. I think you don't always get it right, but it is just that extra bit of that, like, that extra half an hour, like, when you're in a feature film world, people do come and do if they can, and I think that's really what I noticed when I directed an advert or like, something else. It's sort of like, when it's a film, people sort of get really excited because we don't get to work on that many feature films anymore because there's not enough British features being made. It's like high-end television and adverts and stuff, which is all brilliant. But like, I just think that's where you really want to be careful with who you bring around you, because there are people that will like jump into it. And actually, yes, of course, you can get a massive experienced DOP that's done 45 million films. Or you can get someone that's sort of a bit earlier on who might go, and that's just a choice we get to make as directors, which is exciting.
Was it the same DP you used?
No, it was actually a different DP. Hamish Anderson did Black Dog with me, who's just unbelievable, and he was so brilliant, and we had such a good journey, and it was, it was like we did such like handheld work, and he really got in there with the actors, and so I took that energy across, and I wanted a DP as well who would operate. I think that's quite a big thing for me at the moment. I might change, but at the moment I love sitting next to my DP on set who's operating, so when Bella Ramsey looks up or whoever, they see us. And then I chuck all the... Can you hear my washing machine going off, by the way?
Yeah, but don't worry. You can probably hear the trucks reversing here in the studio.
Yeah, exactly.
It's all good. Same noise.
So we'll just have loads of noise for everyone.
It's fine.
My also washing machine does this like most pretentious like song.
Oh, yes.
I've got a singing washing machine, Giles.
You can turn it off, by the way.
I'm going to go do it now.
No, but I'll go on then. But generally, there's buttons you can press to stop it happening. Because my washing machine at home would constantly beep, 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 and then a minute later do it again, and another minute. It was so infuriating. So I worked out, Googled
Can do it.
the buttons you had to hold down this one and that one and
Okay, that's my mission later.
it's
Is
your
watch
mission
the
to
machine.
stop this annoying, pretentious sound. I don't mind it, but it's irritating.
Yeah, it's kind of cute though. I'm sort of like, oh wow, the washing's
Oh,
done.
it's
Yeah.
cute. Oh, a little dance, a little song.
Yeah, do the little slow dance as it's finishing. But no, I just yeah. So I love when they look up and they sort of see us there, and then all my producers and execs, and that noise is in a tent, And then like usually if there's anything that comes in, I want it to sort of go through my first. And I think it's just because I've learned that actually having my handheld monitor on set away from everyone, like I don't like people watching over my shoulder because I find it that like I'm listening to them breathe and then react to it, and I'm not watching. And often I sort of check the shot, and unless it's a complicated camera move, I'm sort of watching the actors too, and that's such a hard thing to do in a live thing. So yeah, so Hamish was amazing on Black Dog, and I want to work with him again and again. But I also wanted to sort of, I think, find a DP as well that like had done a lot of like Americana feeling work as well, because I think that was a big thing for me as a step up from Black Dog. Was like I'm so proud of that movie. It's a really, for those who haven't seen it, it's like a small British indie that we made for £500,000 about two boys who lose their mum and are on a road trip from London to Scotland, and we shot it in 4 weeks. It was madness, it was chaos, it was all those things, but it was such a pure thing that I shot when I was 21, and like and I'm so proud of it. But I also feel like it's probably the smallest movie I've made, because it's like, it's even in scale, it's like, looks very BFI, and then I love the look of those films, but it feels very British and small and independent, which it was. And then with Sunny, when I wrote the script and I wanted to sort of bring back those 80s and 90s ensemble films like The Breakfast Club, and have a nod to like, in the 2000s, like Juno and Little Miss Sunshine and all those films that I love, and Lady Bird and those coming of age films that really felt like they got it right. I wanted to sort of make a transatlantic feeling and make the film feel quite locationless and timeless. Like it could be 2004, it could be 2024, it could be 2014 as well. And it is British accents and it's like British humor and all those things. But I think then Oliver Longcrane, Ollie, he got suggested to me because there's another DP called Mark Patton who I work with quite a bit as well. And like I always say, you need 5 really amazing DPs that you want to have like on speed dial, because you never know who's busy. Like
So true.
Susie Lavelle, like all those. I just love people that are really great with actors. And Ollie got suggested to me, and they had just finished Young Sherlock together, which
Right.
again has that sort of like glossy, slightly Americana feeling, although it's like very Guy Ritchie and very British. But I was just really excited about that. And obviously Ollie, before he was a DP, came out through the camera department and has like, was known as like one of the best operators. And I just felt when he wanted to do it, I was so excited, because I was like, right, we can really add scale here. And he knows all the people, so we can get all the like extra juice out those cranes and all that stuff.
Yes.
So we brought him on, and that was what I was so excited about with the step up from Sunny. The budget was a big step up, but also just, like trying to make it feel more transatlantic in production design, in cinematography, in casting, in music, in everything. So long way of saying Ollie and Hamish are both brilliant, but Ollie did this one.
Yeah, and on that, how do you create that rapport with new crew and let's say DP? Because it's just such an important relationship for a director. I'd say more so than first and producer and not
Do you
cast.
think?
Yeah, I think DP they're my, I feel like right-hand person. They're the
Yeah.
person I rely on the most, because they're trying to get my vision in my head across, where the first trying to just get it on time and the producer's trying to make sure the money's there or you're not overspending. So for me, that's my, apart from the actors,
I feel like
North Star.
I feel like not differently, but I feel like because I've worked with Ben Quirk, my first, for so long now, that I guess I really value, like, it doesn't just feel like he's trying to bring it on time. I think he's trying to protect my vision and then trying to help me. If we're struggling, he's like, where are we pulling? Like I'm not saying we can't do it, but just what are we doing? And I guess I feel really lucky that he's so creative first and sort of schedule. And we did no overtime on Sunny, right? And that was like very testament to him. But with Ollie, it is scary, like working with someone like, because and also my production designer Pat Campbell, who's amazing, and she's won like Emmys and all this stuff. And I was like, you see all these like amazing credits and things, but you're like, oh, but what if we don't get on? But I think it's about having time and get to know them as people before you give them the job. So like, the interview process is always so, like, I know everyone I interview can do the job. Like, that's not really what I'm checking. I'm not checking if the DOP can do it. I know they can. I've watched their work. Like, but I guess it's just a vibe check. I sort of go into it going like, can we run through walls together? And like, a question I always ask DPs, and I don't know if they like it. I was like, look, if I was like, like, I need this day to be lit. Like, like we're shooting in a cabin. I need you, because we're struggling on the schedule, like just to do one light up or 3 lights up. Could you make that work? And like, Ollie was like, yeah, I'd want to add shape, but like I could make that work, of course. And I find that really exciting because you just don't know what's going to get hit. And I always call it the fire escape moment of like when your back's up against a wall and you've got 2 hours. A scene earlier took a bit longer and now you've got to take it and you're just not sure, like what is that fire escape? You smash through and you go, right, we've still got a plan. And so it is scary, but I think it's, building up rapport, lots of lovely dinners and nice lunches and time together and get to know each other as humans away from the working environment too. Like, I met Ollie's family and like I knew about Ollie's journey into film and how he got there. And I knew the crew he used in London. And even though he didn't have all of his crew up in Scotland, like, we sort of really got to know each other. And I think also I just got really lucky as well. Like he's one of the kindest guys and I adore him. And Pat Campbell is the same. And Liberty Bramnell, who's my costume designer, was her first ever design credit. She stepped up and that was incredible. And obviously my casting team, but everyone was just, I feel so genuinely lucky that like the heads of department on this just felt really electric and alive and brilliant.
But it comes across, George, Sunny Dancers, that it's a fantastic movie. It's so beautifully captured. It's so beautifully performed and directed. There's so much warmth and care and passion in there. And it's a delight to watch. It's a really beautifully told story. And it hit me the moment it's supposed to hit you, and I was just crying, and I was like, okay, yeah, well done. It was just really beautiful, and the performances. And let's talk about that then in terms of getting what you wanted from your cast, especially the younger cast is hard. I imagine with Neil Patrick Harris and Jessica and everyone else like that, you're kind of a bit like, well, James Norton, it's a bit, they know what they're doing and you can just guide them. But obviously you've got your younger cast. Bella's a very big exception, but she's also playing a different kind of role. Talk us through your process as a director to get what you wanted from your younger cast then. And then we'll talk
I think like, with Ruby Stokes, who plays Ella, Ruby was in Black Dog. So I wrote that role for her. And that was so exciting to actually write a role for an actor. And then the actor to say yes. I was like, oh, imagine if she had said no, I would have cried. Like,
how dare you? Ruby.
So you sort of know where Ruby's strengths are, and I sort of knew roughly when I was writing, like I knew how funny she was, and I knew that I would be able to get some awkwardness in it, and I just knew sort of what I was shaping for her. And then with Bella, I wish Bella was my idea at first, but Bella was my casting director's ideas, Daniel Edwards, Lucy Allen, and Tom Payne, and they had said to me, look, let's go for Bella. And Bella had just finished The Last of Us series 1, it was out, and I was like, there's no way they're going to do this job. It's like we have not much money. We're shooting in Glasgow, like it's just not going to happen. And they were like, let's just go for it and see. And so we sent it to Bella's agent, and Bella's agent read it really fast and was like, look, I've sent it to Bella. We love it. Let's see what Bella says. And I got this email just being like, Bella would love to jump on a Zoom. And I was like, I have no idea what that means. And then so I'm getting ready for the Zoom, and like all the execs are calling me being like, George, if you get Bella, it's a real big deal. And I'm like, I know. I'm like, I know this is a big deal. I'm like 24 at the time. I want to cry. Like I'm terrified. And I jumped on a Zoom with Bella. I was like, Bella, look, I just don't know what to say apart from like, I really want you to do this job. And Bella was just like, yeah, obviously I want to do it. And I was like, oh. And then we just spoke about life. And I think that's a massive thing for me, is getting to know them as people and getting to know who they are. Because then what I try and do is find similarities between Bella and Bella's character and Ivy, and things to grab hold of and things to sort of like push, and things that are very different as well that you can also talk about and reflect upon. And I think when you're working with actors, it's about finding common ground. And it's, as a director, it's about trying to understand them and their process and their brain and everything. And I always ask them, like, how do you like to take notes? And how do you, because every actor on my set, and I had some big names on there, they all take notes really differently. And Bella, like you said, is an exception because Bella's been doing this since they were 10. So they've been doing this for like 10 plus years, and I've been doing it for 10 years now. And it's sort of, I think Bella and I really connected over the idea of both of our teenage years being quite different from a lot of sort of people that don't get into the profession really young. And that was a really lovely thing. And Bella, in the Hollywood Reporter sort of said Sunny Dancer gave them another shot at having a childhood. And I think that was what I was really aware of when I cast Bella, was they had been working for so long and they had been doing The Last of Us and Game of Thrones and Time and amazing performances in huge worlds. But like, I was very like, Sunny Dance is going to be you utterly stripped back with nothing to hide behind, and we're making a film about cancer. where cancer is the least interesting thing about these young people. There's no slow-mo hospital scene of running down a corridor to a flat line. It's very about these young people who are full of life and want to go out and want to snog each other and want to party and all those things. And I then knew with Bella it was about protecting that rehearsal period for them to click out of the Last of Us mode. And then into the shoot, I was like, I just got to make sure this is the most fun job in the world. Because I was like, the more fun Bella is having and that young cast is having, and the more it feels like they're going to summer camp, the better this movie will be. And so I briefed that to all my team, and I just said, like, I don't care if we're on fire or we're running out of time. I don't want to ruin this illusion for the actors that this is just a fun job. And so then it was in rehearsals when we started casting the other young guys. And, you know, we have like, Cave, who's been doing it for a while, and Conrad Khan. And like, but we also have Jasmine Elcock, who's a total newcomer who's never done a film, in a very like veteran of young people gang, who probably, I think the commonality between all of them is like they all have been working through their teen years, so maybe had a different teenhood, and then Sunny Dancer feels like that as well. And obviously I'm not comparing our industry to having cancer, but there is something about the idea of other that my performers probably connected to. So in rehearsals, when I got them all in, we had done all the character work offset for all of them, and I tweaked bits of scripts, and especially with for Earl, I think I wrote that role as ginger, pale, and then Earl came in as like a punk rock looking guy and was just amazing. And you know, when they came into rehearsal, it would be like we'd do some workshop work in the morning, and I partnered up with a charity called Oka, who basically give you some funding to bring on research academics and lived experience experts. And for us, it was around cancer. So we had an amazing person called Professor Rachel Howe, who sort of is a leukemia doctor in UCLH, and she came in and did a workshop about cancer for the young cast. But they could just ask stupid questions, but they weren't even stupid. But it's just little things like, how common is a young person going through cancer? You know, like what is that journey, and just things that really helps. And then we also had Polly Bennett come in as a movement coach, choreographer, and Polly, you know, did Bohemian Rhapsody and is like sort of unbelievable. And she did a bit of a movement class around what having a long-term illness might do to the body and how the heaviness and just things like that. And then she also did the crazy dance that they do and what that process. But, you know, there was some stuff, and I got scenes that, but I always say, like, we only want to hit 50% in rehearsals. You know, I don't want you sitting on set going, you know, when I did that amazing breakdown in rehearsal.
Never want that.
Never want that, because then you're retraining, it doesn't feel real. But every afternoon, I would just stop, we'd play music, we'd just have a giggle, we'd talk about stories from our teen years. I would tell them all crazy stories about when I had a moped and worked on a market stall selling donuts, and I would do lock-ins at the local pub, and I think they were all slightly horrified. But, you know, and I always say, like, my job isn't to make cast members best friends, it's to make them look like they're best friends. But by Wednesday, they were all going out, and they're like, George, this was on rehearsals, they were like, we're going to go out tonight. I was like, you guys go crazy, get out of your system.
Do it now, yeah.
I was like, you know, you go out, have an all-nighter, whatever you need to do, it's fine. Like tomorrow morning, I can work, you know, around it. And they all came in the next day, and I was like, what time did you guys finish? They were like 10 p.m. And I was like, I have the right cast. I was like, this is amazing. Like the work is so valuable. But, you know, I think it's about, for me, you know, in those afternoons, we then just would play music, chat about the world. And then I would send them raft building and on the climbing walls. And we were at the camp. So they just got to basically go to summer camp for 6 weeks. And I think in answer to your question, that's how I did it, was like I wanted to make them really close and feel bonded about the world. Then it was like, hey, let's make this the most fun job possible. Then let's make them go to a summer camp for real. And they were all living in flats, one above each other. So it felt like they couldn't really get away from each other. They all shared a car to work, because I insist on that. And it just felt so electric. So when we got to the actual performance, they really had bonded as a group. And it felt like a group of young people who had probably come to camp over and over and over again. And then Bella was going into that in a really different thing. And I think some people had called me before and were like, are you going to keep Bella away from the group so you get the, like, you know, you get the awkwardness at the beginning? And I'm like, actors are amazing at acting that.
They can act
like,
awkward. Yeah.
Let's just get everyone feeling like family, and then I can do reverse pedal out of there. But and then on set, I guess the process was a lot like those big days when we had all 6 young people, you know, they were mad because it was just such an infectious energy. And I'd have a speaker that was like probably the size of me that I'd wheel around, and it got like nicknamed the George Vibe Machine. And I'd just blast music in the morning and rehearse and just be like, right, let's play around and see. And we'll do blocking and we'll do interesting shapes. I'm very like, Lenny Abrahamson's been a real mentor of mine, and I always find his blocking and like stuff like Normal People just slightly interesting. And I think Sentimental Value did that so brilliantly as well, when they're sitting like I always remember when they're just on the floor of the bed, and I'm like, I love when like people sit on the floor and just do things that sort of using space differently. And I always say like young people never sit still. So like, how do you have them sitting weirdly on a bar or a table or not on the chair? Um, and we would do that in the morning with some music on, and then we'd get the script, and they were so good at it. And like, I would have to sometimes go in and tweak some bits and bobs, but like they were so electric and overlapping and all of that stuff. And then after we'd done that, we did a thing called the feral take, which was where I'd let them go utterly crazy. And Giles, sometimes the jokes would be funny, sometimes they wouldn't be, but what you'd get is amazing reactions. And that was brilliant. And Caitlin Spiller, my editor and co-producer, and Caitlin actually had cancer when she was growing up. So sort of, I guess I sort of wrote a lot of this book because my mum had cancer, and I'm ambassador for Teenage Cancer Trust, but also Caitlin would tell me stories about summer camps that she used to go on. But she'd be editing live each day, so I would get to see these sort of like arcs of these characters flowing, and you sort of be like, okay, there's something really magic about that bit where Rashfest, played by Conrad Khan, is doing something there, and like you just start seeding it in, and it was really amazing in that sense. And I think that's how we did it.
Yeah. How many of those? What word did you say? Crazy takes. What did you just call it?
Feral takes. Yeah, we called it feral. Yeah,
Feral
that was a
take.
word we just used. We wanted the film to feel feral.
And that's a really good way of describing it to your actors, because then they go, "Oh, I can be feral," rather than "Let's do a crazy one." But feral is a really good way. How many of those?
I think it's better than crazy, because crazy feels like, I've got to come up with something.
Do something.
Whereas
feral feels tight and dirty and intimate.
Yeah.
And the sexy and weird, rather than crazy, which is just, oh God, I've got to be big and crazy. And whenever I've said do a crazy one, I've never used any of them. Very rarely.
Yeah.
How many of these feral ones, which is different, did you actually use in the edit, do you think?
You know what? Like, I think it really depended on the scene. So if you take the scene when they're all sitting around at just before the rave in the cabin, when they're on like
the cabin on the beds. Yeah.
And they're talking about like, and they're talking about tampons and like, Cave gets slapped around the face with a tampon, and the boys are learning that like pads don't stick onto your legs or your or your vagina. It's sort of like, which is a really important lesson for young men to learn, by the way. This is like huge. And we actually partnered with like an amazing like charity that sort of ends period poverty in the UK called Hey Girls, and I'm so proud of that journey that happened through that crazy scene of writing about lemon and lime flavored tampons, because when I was a kid I had to go by my mum and her girlfriend and my sister. Like, I was just like, I don't know
I feel embarrassed and stupid. And we shouldn't
No.
It's a normal, natural thing. It happens. It happens. Why is it awkward?
And so when we were doing that scene, for example, like that was a lot of feral takes. We got the script, but then like Ruby's going like, there's strawberry ones in the cupboard, that's still in there. And Conrad has a line, he's like, I know what I'm doing, I've got two sisters. And then Earl's going, oh, you've got two sisters, they hot. And just stuff like that you're just like, this feels so childish and stupid, but such a good vibe. So in those kind of scenarios, it was really alive. But then I guess when I'm doing like a therapy scene about like therapy feeling like Ribena, you come in and you add more water, and each time you come to therapy, it sort of feels like it dilutes it more. There wasn't that many feral scenes it takes there. It was quite a sincere moment. So I think
got this. Yeah.
You sort of lean on it where you can, but what I'm proud of is like, if a performer trusts you, because they'll try something stupid and it will make you piss yourself in the monitor, and then you'll get back and see edit and you'll be like, that was so funny on set, but I don't know if there's a place for it. Or sometimes there is, and that's so brilliant and electric, and how fun to have that time to try those things.
Yeah, I love it. I imagine your set was an incredible place to be. Let's talk about the sort of the older actors, if you like. We're going to call them that to be mean, but in terms of your names, James Norton, Jessica Gunning, and Neil Patrick Harris. Obviously Bella, but we've talked about Bella. But those, how did you go about that? Now, casting them, you can maybe touch on, but in terms of working with them and how it differed.
Casting was like with them was like, with James and Jess, they came first, was sort of going, I want really naughty, feral again, parents that like probably had kids quite young, and like, because I was really obsessed with this idea that like, that they had a daughter and they probably didn't grow up until Ivy, their daughter, Bella's character, sort of was diagnosed, and that's where they grew up. I don't know why, I just became obsessed with that as a writer and director. And I was then looking at people that hadn't played parents of teenagers, and so James's name came up quite quickly, and we sent the script to James and he loved it, and he was really into it, but he wanted to know who his wife was. And again, my cast directors were like, what about Jessica Gunning from Maybe Reindeer? And this was before Jess won every award, so I was like, oh my god, yes, this is genius. And like in my head, like James and Jess equals Bella, and we got them, and I just couldn't believe it. I was like, you're coming to Glasgow for 2 weeks, what the hell, this is amazing. And And then working with those two was incredible because like I've been a huge fan of James's work and Jess's work. I'd seen Jess in theatre for years. So again, I took them both for separately, but for a vodka tonic or a coffee or whatever it was before the shoot. And I was just so grateful that they were coming for me for something that they didn't know to come put their name on the film. And I was like, okay, how do you like take notes and all that stuff? But I think with a family unit like that, what was really important was spending time with Bella and them and just letting them chat. And they all take notes really differently and they are in scenes very differently. And I think, but one commonality, the common thing between all three, Bella, James and Jess, is how much fun they have. So I remember doing the like opening scenes where like Ivy's around a table and they're going, you have to go to cancer camp, and Ivy's going, it's chemo camp. The giggles that they got in were just so infectious. And every time Jess and I wanted to make parents that, you know, in the film, like they get left behind, right? You know, Bella goes to camp and you lose them. But I wanted parents that were so fun that you'd miss them. And that was my brief to them. I was like, I need to miss you. So when they're on the FaceTime call halfway through, you're like, oh my God, they're going to come back. They're going to come. And then they come back towards the end of the film and you're like, they're back, they're back. And every time those two were on screen, they'd just give you gold. It would be like, Jess Gunning has a line which was like, if any of you fuck with my daughter's, cancer will be the least of your problems. And I just, when she did that, I just remember just being like, oh my God. Or James even like does the most like dad thing around the table where he's just like that.
Does,
Yeah. And I was like, James Coolby was like, George, I have one bone to pick with you. This was before I started work. He was like, I cannot believe you've cast me as Bella Ramsey's dad. I'm not old enough. I was like, James, you are.
You are now. Sadly, you are old enough. Yeah.
But I think, you know, truthfully, like I didn't treat them any differently to the young actors. They still shared cars and they still had the same side trailer. And it was just, you know, we just found our rhythm. And then with Neil came about in the most wild way. Like Jess was at the Emmys with Haim, who did the music for the film. It was Esty Haim who composed it with Zachary Dawes. Esty actually went to diabetes camp. She's type 1 diabetic. So really found the idea of other and things in the script really important to her. So jumped on board, which I was like, oh my God, Haim, and like, oh my God, this is mad. And they were at the Emmys and they were chatting about me, and Neil overheard and then was like to his manager, who is this kid? Like, and his manager was, who's actually my manager as well, called Jason Weinberg, was like, oh, that's George Jaques. He actually just texted me about you, about like, you know, whether you'd ever work in the UK again after It's a Sin and stuff. Why don't we set you up with a Zoom? And then so next thing I just randomly got an email being like, Neil would love to Zoom with you. And I wasn't about Sunny Dance at this point. And I was like, okay, yeah, of course I'm jumping on that. You know, he's Barney, he saved the Smurfs, he's in Gonko. I was like, yeah, I'm in. And also I love this theatre work because obviously a bit of a theatre nerd. So we got on and we were chatting and we were talking. It was supposed to be, he always jokes because he was like, in his diary it's 20 minutes. In mine it was 2 hours. And I'm always like, wow, rude that I was 20 minutes hard out.
Hard out.
But we really bonded over Punch Drunk, and my first lead with Jude Law was a Punch Drunk show. So he was like, had seen it, and it was really like, and then he started talking about how he makes his own cider. And I remember being like, this is the most boring thing I've ever heard. He'd be the perfect Patrick. And I sent, look, Neil, I really want to send you a script. Would you mind? And he was like, of course not. Like, so I sent it to him the next day. He'd read it and he texted me. He was like, can we jump on another Zoom? I was like, yeah, of course. And he was like, had a couple of questions. And I went, look, Neil, I really want you to play Patrick. I've decided overnight, I really think you'd be right. I've always wanted Americans to play that role. I feel like you'll really get it. And he was so clever because he went, I want to do Patrick. Like, how do you see him? Because there's two ways to play him. There's a way that you go, he's just a bit of a loser that everyone laughs at, or he's really intelligent, who's pretending to be a loser to wind the kids up and make sure that they have the best time at camp. And I was like, it's that. And he was like, I'm in. And it would be the greatest honor in my career. And he came to Glasgow and we paid him barely anything. And he just was there. And he was like, I don't want to just come for 2 weeks. I want to settle in. I want to be a part of the world. I want to be a part of the ensemble. And we all went to Kylie Minogue one night, like the whole cast. And like, so working with Neil after that, like Neil and I became really, really close. Like he flew in early. He came up to set for my 25th birthday, which sort of happened week 2. And we've been close ever since, and working with him was a delight. I think what's so exciting about working with Neil is he's been doing this since he was a kid with Doogie Howser and all that stuff, that like actually he can pitch you so many versions of that character. And then what's so exciting is you go, I want that one. And so like once we cracked what that one was, it was so electric. And Neil, he said one thing to me, which I'll always remember. He was like, your writing is so hard to perform in because you go from laughing at the beginning of the scene to then I have to do a breakdown. And like, you know, I remember he does this amazing scene, which I'm so proud of, where he breaks down about why he set up the camp. And I remember doing that quite a few times, and I have a horrid habit of sometimes I'll say to my actors, like, this is the last time I'm going to get you to do it, and then I do one more.
Then you do one
which
more.
is
And one.
usually the one I use. But I remember Neil just like, he did the most amazing performance, and like, it was just, it was perfect. And I remember me like, please don't make me do it again. And I was like, I'm not going to, but he was the best. I mean, he was always on set, on time, early.
Yeah.
He never left set. So even when I was just shooting the supporting artists and just reactions, he was off camera doing the dances, still performing to them, which you do not get. You know, often actors will say, like, I've never had an actor not do it for their other leads, but like to do it for supporting artists is like, that's a jump, you know. And I was, and he was so part of it. He would always have his book on set and just wanted to be part of the gang. And he's remained one of my closest pals, and I love him. I stayed with his family in the Hamptons when I went to New York. He's just been in London for 3 days, like doing all the press. We went to Berlin together, you know, and that man is just, I couldn't say nice things. And he wants to work more in the UK. So like, I'm like to all other directors, you know, if you've got a Neil-shaped hole in your film, obviously, unless it's competing with my time when I need him. But, you know, reach out to me. He's amazing. He's
so good.
So it was so exciting. And actually working with them all together was just so fun because you had all these veterans and everyone just sort of seemed like they were learning off each other. And I just felt so lucky. Like there was one day where I felt very 24 on set. I felt like I was quite adult in moments because I knew everyone quite well. But there was one day where I was just looking at the monitor and it's the talent show day where James Blunt's singing You're Beautiful. James Norton's there, Jess Gunning's there, like Neil's there, Shalom, like all Josie Walker, all these amazing actors, and then Bella and all the young cast. I was like, how have I? This is mad. And James is singing Your Beautiful. I was like, what the hell? This is mental.
That is mental. But also, you deserve it. And you've set that up and you've made that happen.
Here's your report.
Oh, thanks, Jane. I wish I could hire someone just like you.
Try LinkedIn Hiring Pro. It's more than a job board. It's like the recruiter you always wished you had. Hiring Pro uses real-time insights to match your role to LinkedIn's unique network of professionals and delivers a shortlist of best fit candidates. You'll spend less time sorting applicants and more time talking to the right people.
Let's do it. You're irreplaceable, Jane, but another you would be great.
Hire right the first time. Post your job for free on LinkedIn today at linkedin.com/quality.
This episode is brought to you by Accenture. When your advertising operations fall out of sync, everything else follows. Spotify and Accenture are working together to reinvent the rhythm of ad sales, using automation, analytics, and smarter workflows to simplify campaign delivery and access better data across the business. The result? Less time spent on operations, more time connecting brands with the moments and fandoms that matter most. Learn more at accenture.com/Spotify.
Hear that? That's now Crispy and McCrispy strips meeting Creamy Caesar sauce. Sounds extra crispy. Caesar sauce at McDonald's for a limited time. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
How did it... Like, it's always interesting. Like, making a second film is really difficult. Most people can make a first film, and I think the percentage is something like 87% at the moment of people who actually make a second film as a director.
Wow. Wait, 87% don't do it?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. There's a lot of first-time directors who don't make a second film, and I think it's about 87%. Stephen Follows, I'm sure, will correct me and get it exactly right. But it's somewhere around that, between 80 and 90. It's a lot. So for someone to make their second film, or even third, it gets you. It's like there's not many people make 3 or 4. And how does that, not that stat make you feel, but how did it feel going into your second one after your debut? What did you take in mentally that was different? What did you think about that you'd learned from the first one?
Yeah, I think I learned so much, you know, like I feel like everyone's always like, you know, you make shorts and it's going to prep you for directing your debut. I'm like, it just doesn't. Like, I mean, like everyone was like, you know, it's like loads of shorts back to back. I'm like, it's not. It's a stamina game. It's endurance. It's learning. It's getting it wrong. It's getting it right. It's trying to fix it in the edit. It's doing all those things. And I think I was so lucky that the film was actually £500,000 because we had nowhere to go. So like you are at your most creative there because you are genuinely going, I literally cannot reshoot anything. So like, how are we going to make this work in the edit? So like, what's going to happen? And you learn what you didn't get enough coverage, or you learn, you know, all those things you discover and bits about your process that you try and keep, from rehearsals in Black Dog to the text to the letters, like those things. But there's also things you change too. And you go like, okay, on the next one, I won't do that, or I will do that. Or, you know, on the next one, I want to really break down the schedule and I want to make sure we have the 20-minute moment before with my DOP before everyone, you know, those things. That's what you learn. But I think, you know, I kind of miss when I was younger. I used to make a play, right? I'd write the play, put it on. It would do well. I got offered like West End transfer, which was amazing. Which I couldn't do because I was like had my A levels at the time, and then the project would be finished, and that would be it. And then I'd go again, and I would start a new journey, and it might be 5 months. Now everything feels so overlapping. So with Black Dog, like I was writing Sunny Dance when I was in the edit of Black Dog, and I think it was because I was so scared of that fact, probably of like, everyone being like, your first is really hard, but your second is what's really tough. And I was so afraid of that I think I wrote it, and then, the market responded really well to it in a really lucky way. And we had done we pre-sold it at Cannes, we had done most territories, and I felt so lucky on that jump, truthfully. Like, I know, like, how everyone says, like, it's hard work, and it was hard work, but also, there has to be a bit of magic. Maybe it's not like, maybe we'll call it magic, of being like Bella coming onto a project at the time when they'd just have a gap between The Last of Us, and Neil jumping on and hearing my name at the end, all that stuff. And of course, yeah, I've worked hard, so maybe my name would come up in certain places, or maybe the Cannes thing, but still there is a bit of magic that has to happen. And that was something I felt really heavily in my body, was just like that people were turning up for me. And I felt really honoured, and this was such a sensitive subject matter because 1 in 2 people in the UK are affected by cancer, and I've worked as an ambassador for Teenage Cancer Trust for so long, and we had a load of young survivors watch the movie the other day, which made me absolutely burst into tears, because it was just like, and I ended up paying for everyone's therapy on set because I was just so like, I felt like everyone was turning up for me, and I was like, look, I need to, yeah, of course I'm paying you and all that stuff, but also like I know how heavy this stuff can be, and cancer is the least interesting thing, and it's joy and all that stuff, but that was really important for me. And I still feel like, we did the premiere yesterday and it was amazing, and Scissor Sisters turned up, Kylie Minogue was there, and like all these amazing people, and like, the song we have for the Cranberries in the film, and C-Mac wrote an original, and Bon Iver, and it's mad to me. And I think I had a moment the other day where I had a real wobble, not a bad wobble, it was a good one, because it was like these young survivors were talking to me about the movie and what it meant to them. And then I was talking about my mum, and my mum was diagnosed when I was 15, and she survived, and that was amazing and so lucky. It was a really tumultuous time, and our relationship was sort of up and down, and we're really, really close now. But I remember being at Berlin Film Festival, and we were opening night there with the movie, and my mum was 4th row. I could see her when I was sort of doing my intro speech, and I just remember saying this interview, I was like, there was a version of this movie where my mum wasn't in that audience, and that just like hit me so hard. And I was like, Lauren, my publicist, who's somewhere in the gods on this call, was like, are you okay? And I was just, I needed a moment. I think it was just like, I think I take a lot on as a director, and I take a lot of my team on, and I really like look after my people. And I think that's why people do go a bit above and beyond, because I really will run through the walls for anyone that works for me. But yeah, I think that is something that I was very aware of when I did my second movie, was like, how do I level up and how do I make it better?
Well, on that then, how do you deal with the mental strain, your own mental health during directing? Because before and after, we've kind of building up and we're coming down, if you like. But during, it's very hard to have those moments when you just need therapy, or you need someone to talk to in that sense. How do you deal with that, or how did you on Sunny?
Yeah, I think I wasn't a perfect thing to watch when I was doing Sunny, like on Black Dog. I remember one day my mum was in hospital, like having a 12-hour operation or something crazy, and I was coughing up blood, and it was just because I was like, my stomach lining sort of went weird because I had ibuprofen, because I had a headache, and I was, it wasn't great in that moment because I have a lot on and I'm producing and writing, directing. And Sunny Dance was much better than that. That was a real thing that I really tried to do. And Ken, my producing partner, we were really trying to protect that. And I had a big team, and I had, lots of things that sort of could placate that. And I'm not great at, just being really vulnerable for a second. I'm not great at like eating on set sometimes. I don't remember to do that often.
Yes, because we've got so much going on. We're like, someone has to shove it in our hands, and we shove it down.
And then someone brings you like this amazing plate of food, but you're like, I just can't get my head around this plate of rice and like massive amount of food. I was like, I just want something really basic or whatever it is.
Yeah,
and,
just give me a cucumber.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll down it in one.
But when I was on set on this one, I just had so much fun. And that was, there was days where it was stressful, of course there was, but like I just had a lot of fun, and that was because I did so much prep. And because I had such a great team. I think I found I always find press hard. I found Berlin tough, and I found London going through press is amazing, and it's lucky. And I always say, like, whenever I'm feel like complaining because it's stressful. Like, you know, I'm always like, how amazing that people want to talk about this movie and put it in Vogue and all that stuff. And I'm so lucky, and we're in cinemas on the 14th, and we're going like really wide and in Europe, and then we go launch theatrically in America in September. And I'm so grateful for that. But it is stressful. It's like, you know, you're dealing with things that aren't normal. You know, you're dealing with like reviews coming out. You're dealing with I turn Instagram notifications off because you're like, you know, and then on top of that, you're getting so many messages from young survivors and all these things, and you want to be there for everyone, but you can't. And where I've arrived is, I hope my film is an answer to all of that then people have that to sort of relate to and go like, if I can't speak to them about the person that they lost, they have the movie. And it's not that I don't care. It's just that I can't physically be everywhere. I think the bit I struggled the most on Sunny, and when we're now about to start casting the new movie, was actually closing the finance, which I think people don't talk about enough. Like, we had raised the money at Cannes, and we had an amazing company called Night Train Media who also put some equity in, and it was like a lot of big parties and a lot of things with Embankment Films. Hugo Grumbach is just one of my closest people, and he's not at Embankment anymore, but he was just unbelievable, and there's a reason this film happened. But we were closing it, and it was so stressful because you're like, we're not working title, right? Canon, my companies, but we didn't have BFI money. So you have a ticking clock of how long you can last before you need to access those funds. And that closing is tough, and you're trying to make everything align, and you're trying to get contracts, you're trying to get location agreements, and there's so many things that can go wrong, and you're so scared the film can fall apart at any moment. And that was an awful place to be in. And that was a really scary thing because you're getting deeper. And then I had to call an exec producer of mine and go like, I need you to wire me some money because and he was like, how do you know, how do I know it's going to close? And I was like, well, you don't, but you know me, and you know I won't let it. And I remember I was like, that was the worst call to do in my career. And I just remember being like, that is exhausting, and I don't know if I can do that again. And I think, you know, of course, yeah, now I'm producing a lot for the company. I will have to do it again.
You'll have to do it again, mate. So,
but I think what the hardest bit, and I guess long way of saying is like, is when you're making your second feature, or your first feature, it feels so life or death. And I know that will still happen on your third and fourth and fifth and sixth, but like, I won't ever have to make that quite as a brutal jump from Black Dog to Sunny Dancer. And that was a huge jump, because even the new movie, like, it is a step up budget wise, but like, you know, and the cast might be slightly different, but like, it's not like I'm going to sort of like an unknown lead to Bella Ramsey and like Neil and all these massive people and names and budget and cranes, you know. And I think I just felt like I needed it so much, and that really took its toll. But then I think I was so rewarded when we closed and I was in rehearsals. I was like, wow, we've done it. And now I've got to shoot the whole movie. And I was like, oh my God.
Now I've got to actually shoot it. George, listen, I want to talk to you more, but obviously time-wise for you and the amount of press you've got at the moment and your mental space, thank you so much for giving our audience this wonderful discussion on how your brain works and making this film. It was a real delight. Thank you, buddy.
Thank you so much for watching it and spreading the word. And, you know, please, everyone, take your friends, your partners, your kids, your mums, your dads, and go watch our movie in cinemas. You know, that opening weekend for an independent film is everything. And we're in cinemas in the UK and Ireland on the 14th, and in Europe, and then in the US on the 18th of September. Thank you so much for having me again.
Real pleasure. I'm so excited for you. This film is amazing. Everyone, do go see it. Do support. That's what this podcast's about. They find amazing filmmakers like George telling their story. You go watch their films. You go support them. George, listen, have a great day. Honestly, enjoy it. I'm going to get back to the madness of...
I appreciate you so much.
I appreciate you, buddy. Congrats. Speak soon, mate.
Speak soon. Thank you so much, y'all.
Bye. Bye.
Big hugs. Bye. Bye. Bye.
The right window treatments change everything. Your sleep, your privacy, the way every room looks and feels. At Blinds.com, we've spent 30 years making it surprisingly simple to get exactly what your home needs. We've covered over 25 million windows and have 50,000 five-star reviews to prove we deliver. Whether you DIY it or want a pro to handle everything from measure to install, we have you covered. Real design professionals, free samples, zero pressure. Right now, get up to 45% off with minimum purchase, plus get a free professional measure at Blinds.com. Rules and restrictions apply.
At ZocDoc, we know being a healthy adult is like living in a video game. Every day has side quests, taxes, laundry, birthdays, and just when you're leveling up, you have to book a doctor. The insurance portal crashes, they put you on hold, your doctor doesn't take your plan, game over. We see you, so we made booking a doctor easy. Download ZocDoc, search by specialty, insurance, and availability. Book instantly, no cheat codes required. Find a doctor you love with ZocDoc.